Hello, Chris Hoffman from Salt City Strangers here, and I wanted to give you a glimpse of how I finish up pages for our comic book, The Salt City Strangers. What I'm showing you here is Photoshop, and I've got a page from the amazing Toni Doya, penciled by the amazing Toni Doya of Spain, and shows the strangers here all trying to help comfort Spike, who is in the hospital here. And I'm going to show you sort of the unorthodox digital inking process that I use to finish up the comic. Cool thing here is Toni is such an amazing penciler that this page is getting to the point of almost already done way before I even get into it. So this is the process that I use to get the pages done for printing. So the first thing that I do here is I set up my layers to be all set up for what I'm going to do. So the first thing that I do is I always make a copy of the background, because I just like making sure that I have one back here that I do absolutely nothing with, and another one I can leave this one up to actually manipulate, and if I make any mistakes I can always go back to the pristine background and bring it back. Then I create two more layers, and I put one underneath the background copy. So I've got layer 1, and I fill that one. Oh, and you duplicate those files here. Forget that when I'm showing this I should explain what I'm doing. I create those new layers by clicking the new layer button down here. There's a shortcut key for it that I don't remember what it is. So, but then layer 1, I fill it. Let's see, force fill, edit, fill. I fill it with white so that it's an entirely white background. And then layer 2, I just leave transparent because we're going to be drawing on that one. So then on background copy, I create a quick mask. So select background copy and then click on the quick mask button. So now I've got a mask for background copy, a transparent layer above background copy, and a filled layer with white underneath background copy. So that's all I do. I'll explain why we do that in just a second, but first we're going to prep these pencils here. So I'm going to bring it in a little bit. So the whole deal with this, the point of inking is to sort of define the pencils so that it's, when you're looking at it in the comic, it's more defined. It defines the pictures. It's not tracing. Go watch Chasing Amy, great movie, to watch all the jokes about that. But the point of it is to take these spot blacks, these large areas that are supposed to be completely black, make them jet black so that they're framing the shadows and whatnot, and then define the pencils, the outlines, and everything of the characters and all the pieces in here. You can see, since these are pencils, there's little pieces in here that make the picture look dirty, and so that's what I'm going to try to do through Photoshop, is try to do all of that stuff that you would do in inking. But like I said, since Toni's gone so far with these pencils, shouldn't have to do a traditional like go over every single line to make it work. So the next step that I do is change my scheme to color scheme to basic so that Camtasia will keep up with me. So having the background layer selected and not the mask, you can see this little border that comes around in the layers palette when you're on the mask. Here we want to be selected on the actual picture. So we've got it on the picture now, and then I go to images, image, adjustments, and then levels. So the first thing that this does is, on the gradient scale, the right side being white and the left side being black, excuse me, you can start dragging these in, and you'll start to notice that I'm getting less gray. Like, more of the gray is turning into black. You can see I can go all the way down with this, and it makes it into like a really, then there's nothing except for perfectly black and perfectly white. We don't want that at this stage. What I'm just trying to do is bring in stuff that needs to be more black, making it black. And then on this side you can see there's a lot of stuff. This histogram here is showing that there's a lot of white on the page. So I'm bringing that back so that right here is the whitest thing on the page. And see, that takes care of a lot of the dirty gray stuff that's going on around the edges of some of these pencils. You can grab the middle one here and you can see, like, you can start making the middles of the gray parts so that there's less gray in there. They start to turn a little bit more black. So I like to bring that up a little bit. All of this is an art form too. Like, there's no scientific reason for the way that I'm doing this. It's just getting it to the page where the way I like it to look when it gets printed out. So I like where this is going here, and so I'm going to click on OK. So the next thing we're going to look at is under Image, Adjustments, and Threshold. So what Threshold does is it says it changes everything to black and white. And this little preview that it gives you, you can see you can turn on and off the preview. The preview is a little bit more extreme than the picture is actually going to end up. So what I'm saying here is that I want everything under a certain number to be perfectly black. So see, if I take it all the way up here, that means that anything that is above a 1 is, I want to turn into white. So you can see there's only just a little bit of stuff in this picture that would even count for saying, hey, anything underneath this needs to be black. Now this all the way on this side means that all information in here, no matter how gray it is, change it into black. So that's everything, but it makes it kind of dirty. It's making too many spots. It's muddling up some of the details around here. So what I try to do is find like a nice little happy medium in here, right around in there, because then we're getting rid of a lot of the problems in the gray around here. The lines are starting to come in real nice, and yeah, so that's at 145 on this picture. That's where we're going to try that for the first try. Now you can see it didn't come in exactly the way that Threshold, that preview showed it was going to. But now you can see, always got to remember that a comic book is going to be printed smaller than the page that you're working on. So if you're down in this level at 100% on Photoshop, man, there looks like there's a lot of problems in here. But start taking this away to more about where you're going to see it when someone actually looks at the comic book. It's looking pretty clean, actually getting really close to where I want it for printing. So now I can look in here and say, boy, there's a lot of issues around here. There's a lot of spots that make this look like they're not supposed to be there on purpose. Like these little dots, you can tell that those ones have been, that's part of just the pencil process. I'm going to go back actually from levels. I'm going to try one more. I'm going to try a different threshold here. Let's see. See, at that point the lines are breaking up a little bit too much. I need these lines to stick around a little bit better. Let's try right around 121, see what that does. Like I said, zoom out to take a look. Gonna go back to levels and look. So I'm in the history window. I'm clicking back and forth between levels and threshold, the thing I did last and the thing I did right before, just to see how that's turning out. And it's actually okay. A lot better than I thought it was. Okay, so yeah, the 120 seems to be a lot better. Okie dokie. So from here, like I said, we've got all the little speckles in here that I want to deal with. So while I'm still selected on the picture, I'm going to go to Filter, Noise, Dust and Scratches. And you see I've got this on Radius 1, Threshold 11. So that means any speck that is 1 pixel by 1 pixel big, assume that it's not supposed to be there, and basically blow it away. So you can see in the preview, as I turn preview on and off, you can see over here on this sink, all those little specks, a lot of them are getting filled in. I'm just being left with like a few areas that need fixing. And you can see a lot of the double-edged sword on this is it's fixing a lot of that stuff, but it's also ruining a bunch of lines on here. So I'll have to fix those things. That's one of the things you have to kind of go back and forth and see, okay, is it worth what I'm blowing away? Is it worth trying to keep that as part of the detail, or will I have to go back over it and try to fix it? So that's just a personal decision. This is looking pretty good here for me. And so now, once again, zooming out, it's getting to be pretty dang good here. So now I'll show you why we've got these 2 layers. So I'm going to come up here to the sink. I like to try to start in the upper right hand corner so that I'm making sure that I go and do everything that I'm going to do. So I break this up into 3 different processes so that I'm sure to do the whole thing for each one. So the first process that I do is the spot blacks. So I go to the top layer here and I choose the pencil brush tool, make sure that it's on black, and then now I can just come in here and I can start filling in these areas that have the messy specks of white in it. And so I just do it for these large areas. I try to go around like the borders, the sort of the edges here. So if it's a large area like this, I'll kind of go over the border area, the sort of along the edges. Oops. Undo button. That's why I ink digitally. So then come in here, kind of fix that out. And fill this in. Da, da, da. Okay, then I take the lasso tool and I select the large area here, and then I've created a shortcut key on my tablet digitizer thing here, so that I just push the button on my pen, and it runs an action that is just fill. So you can, it does basically this automatically. It goes to edit, fill, black, okay. And so you can find all sorts of YouTube videos about how to create an action. And so that's all I'm doing here. It speeds things up for large areas like that. Sometimes I'll even just do this. Said Jonathan Hallett, who showed me how to do that. Such a good idea. I'd never thought about it before. But so now you can see spot black taken care of over here. So I just keep going through all of these spaces that need that done to it. That's the first thing that I do, because it's the first thing that has the most impact on the picture. Having all of those spot blacks done cleans up the picture immensely. I'm just gonna make that a little bit bigger there. It helps clean up the picture a lot, so that when I look at it, it's looking more and more professional. If I do this whole process, a page like this will end up taking me probably about an hour and a half, which is way down from what it used to take when I would do it in a more traditional sense, or in a more traditional way. So then if there's spots like this where it's just easier to get the brush out and start going that way, then I'll switch over to the brush and clean some of this area up, get rid of some of these little square looking parts. If I see something like that that looks like it's not on purpose, I'll fix that too. That's the big deal about the difference on here, is whether the little specks that are in your picture look like they're on purpose or if they look like they're an accident. If it looks like it's an accident, then in my opinion that's what makes it look unprofessional. So, but if I'm going through here and getting rid of all of these little spots, I think that helps out with the picture a lot. So this is just like any other inking. You just kind of decide which parts are the parts that need to be black and the parts that don't. So anyway, so you get the idea here. You can see how much nicer that's already looking. And like I said, if we go down to where it's actually going to be more likely to the way you're going to see it when it's in print, that's working out really well. So now that's to actually fill in the black parts. So you can see there's these specks that I have in here that are in the middle of nowhere in the white area, and I want to actually get rid of those too. So the way you do that is on the background copy layer, choosing the mask. And the reason to use a mask is because it's a non-destructive way to edit the picture. So if you use the eraser, so if I choose the picture and then I use the eraser, it'll erase, but then that information's gone. I can't get it back unless I start to undo, and Photoshop's only going to remember so many actions before it's just going to stop paying attention and keeping track of your undos. So here in the mask, you can using black on the mask does the same thing. It'll erase the information. Oh, it's because I'm an eraser. Haha. Go back to pencil here. So choose the pencil. If I'm painting black on a mask, it does the same thing as the eraser, but then I can switch back to white and I can get that information right back. So white reveals, black conceals. If you switch over to black, you can see here that I'm erasing the information and then it shows what's on layer 2. I'm hiding the information. If I if I use white, then it brings the information back. So now that we know that, I can paint on the mask with black and get rid of these little specks that I don't like. And that starts to clean up the parts of this that are looking like they're not supposed to be there. Whoop. So the other thing that I like to do is on some of these ones where I end up blunting it a little bit, like these cloth folds and like this piece that goes in from his shoulder, I can go across the front of these with this, and then it makes them a little bit more sharp. So maybe a little bit too much worrying about things like that, but that's if I do end up taking off the end of one of these pieces, I like to go in and sharpen it up to still keep it a sharp fold. So now I can go through this and get rid of any of the little specks that get left over as like artifacts from the processes we did before. And that cleans up the white parts that don't look like they mean to be there. So I'll do both of those things for the whole picture. So then after that, I will go back to the layer 2 where we're keeping the black information. I'll go back to the brush and I'll take it down to a 2 pixel big pencil here. And that's when I'll start fixing these things. So these gray areas that we lost some information about here on Den Mother. Oh, that's not her collar. Like here on her shoulder, her arm. I'll fix these things so that it looks like it's on purpose, so that the character is still all the way there. Belt disappeared a little bit during the processes here. Is there a buckle? So then, once again, looking at the way it's actually going to be printed, fixed a lot of the stuff already. It only took me a couple of seconds. Now the deal is with this, this comic is an indie production. I am not trying to emulate a Marvel, DC, Image style production here. I understand that, oops, that this is as far as the art goes on the comic, it's a two-man show. The writing and the creative part, well, not the drawing's not the creative part. The writing and the creation of the comic, I get lots of help from all the people that help out with the strangers, who, you know, expect nothing in return, and who I super appreciate. But when it finally comes down to the art here, Toni does the original pencils, and then it's up to me to do everything else, to get the lettering done, to get the inking finished here. So I have been trying to do these processes to try to save me some time, because like we did with Strangers 1, we spent a lot of time with traditional materials trying to ink the comic, and that made the comic take somewhere around a year to finish one issue. And that is just way too long for a comic to take for anybody to stay interested in it. So I am trying to do these things to get the comic to good enough. Because for me, what's important about the comic is the storyline. Getting the stories out there. At some point, I believe that the comic will start getting to the point where people want it every month, and that's when I can start moving this over into having a more professional inker finish up the comic for me, so that I'm not using, they can do a little bit more of the way they want to do their art form. As it stands right now, I'm not a person who is gonna get all up in arms because of the way that this isn't the quote-unquote right way to do inking. What I'm trying to do is the whole finished product is the artwork here, not just the sum of its pieces. If that makes any sort of sense. It probably doesn't. So you get the idea here. So I am going to keep working on this, and I will show you the finished product after I am done